Day three of the Gut Challenge. I'm really excited to see so many of you, thousands of people joining us on YouTube. Hundreds and hundreds of you guys in the VIP, the Rule Breakers. So I just want to thank everybody for sticking with me the last 2 days. We're on day three of the Gut Challenge. You should start really feeling the rewards by the end of today. So this is the final day of the live challenge. So just stay motivated, guys. That's why I try to pour hours and hours of time into this, to do this challenge with you guys. Yesterday, you should have had your mid-afternoon snack of papaya and pineapple with lime. I thought it was delicious. And then we followed that with a grass-fed dinner, beef stir fry with broccoli and ginger. And all of those recipes were put together for a reason. I'm going to go into that in a second. So I just want to know, put it into the chat. Let me know how it tasted. How are you feeling? What's working? What's not? Are you seeing the results so far today? Was your sleep any better than it was the previous nights? How about your mental clarity? How about the overall gut effects? I mean, are you feeling less bloating, less constipation? Have any of you started to have regular bowel movements? It's a little odd to talk to 2,000 people about bowel movements, but if you're regular, that means that you're healing, you're eliminating waste, you're repairing, you're detoxifying. So important. So last night you were supposed to take the Body Health Gut Restore. That's what's replenishing our gut microbiome with healthy bacteria. And then remember, also helping to repair the gut lining. So it's crucial to the healing process. We take 1 to 2 servings of this with water. Okay, so I take 2 servings of it. You can take 1 if you're under 150 pounds. You can take 2 if you're over 150 pounds. I see a lot of questions from people asking for the link. So please make sure that you're registered for the challenge. They can register at theultimatehuman.com, right? And we're also going to pop it into the chat right now. So just make sure that you're registered for the challenge, and then you should see the link. Also, don't forget, if you upgrade to VIP this week, you're going to get 2 extra weeks, a continuation of the meal plans and recipes. We'll do an hour of live Q&A. I also have another 2-hour live Q&A with my Rule Breaker community scheduled every single month, where I just sit live and take questions. I do content after podcasts. I allow you to actually ask questions directly to my podcast guests. Monday is Dr. Hyman. And Dr. Hyman, if you don't know who he is a mentor of mine. He's written a number of books in the space: biohacking, longevity, and anti-aging. He's an absolute icon in this space. He's a gem of a human being. I feel really blessed to have him on the podcast this coming Monday. So if you're a Rule Breaker or VIP, you're going to actually be able to get directly and ask him questions. Okay, so today's theme is restore and energize. So for the past 2 days, we've been kind of laying the groundwork for our gut health by eliminating the irritants, the things that are continuing to cause inflammation. We have to get the bad actors out before we put the good actors in. I often will tell people that are exposed to mold toxicity or other pathogens, especially heavy metals, there's zero chance that you will heal from those conditions, especially mold toxicity. The number one thing, and I happen to live in the mold capital of the world, Miami, Florida. We won the mold lottery down here. And we live in the mold capital of the world, so our clinics see a lot of mold toxicity patients. And mold toxicity has the very similar symptomology to gut dysbiosis, brain fog, hormonal disruption, sometimes confusion, trouble with paying attention, mood collapse. So you get very melancholy, overall fatigue, days of crushing fatigue. But in any case, the number one thing about mold toxicity is that you will never detox from a mold toxicity or mold poisoning without removing yourself from the toxic environment, or removing the toxin from your environment. I know people that are living in homes that have mold in the ventilation system or mold behind the drywall, and they've been in not mold remediation, but they've actually been in mold treatment for years and don't seem to be able to get rid of the mold or the mycotoxin. The reason is they're still in that environment. This is very analogous to what happens in our gut. We'll never heal and seal and repopulate the gut back to normopathic function unless we remove the things that are actually destroying it. And for many of you, that is folic acid. For several of you, those are food dyes, especially red dye number 40. That one is extra nasty. It's fluoride, it's chlorines that are in our tap water. These compounds are toxic to our gut lining. So if we clean up our environment, we can clean up our gut. You know, contents matter. Stress and gut health is also really important. I haven't really touched yet on stress, but remember, there's no separating your gut from your mind. They are hardwired together. The vagus nerve, if you actually were to Google images of vagus nerve, you'd see these two big nerves dropping down your neck, and then they look like tree branches. They go all throughout your gut. They attach to your cardiothoracic cavity. They go into your abdominal cavity. They innervate your diaphragm. They pass through and they go into the gut. That's why when you get that nauseated feeling, when you're nauseous, you also have an imbalance. Sometimes your ears can ring. This is also one of the primary hardwired nerves that sends you into fight or flight. Remember, our nervous system has two states that it sort of goes back and forth between. One is called the sympathetic state, and I don't know why they call it sympathetic, but it is the fight or flight state. So if you drove home tonight and you got out of your car and somebody was standing in front of you with a knife, you would activate the sympathetic nervous system. You would begin to have a fight or flight response, and your pupils would dilate, your heart rate would increase, your extremities would flood with blood. You would go into a fight or flight state, right? You would be rather, ready to defend yourself or ready to flight. That is a state of sympathetic nervous system. The other state is called rest and digest. This is the parasympathetic nervous system. Some people, when they go to sleep, as they are trying to quiet their mind, they are in a sympathetic state, meaning they are in a fight or flight state. Not a full-blown panic, not a full-blown fight or flight mode, but they are in an elevated state. They're in the fight or flight state, not the rest and digest state. This is why breath work, not having the stress of having a large meal in your stomach, not having discussions about the problems in your relationship while you're laying there in bed, not putting blue light into your eyes, not having light come through the lids of your eyes at night from your bedroom, and certainly not watching combat sports or the evening news in bed, which usually upsets most people. So these are things that actually stimulate our nervous system. And so for us to really have healthy gut function, we have to spend time in the parasympathetic state, the rest and digest. The reason why they call it rest and digest is digestion is halted when you are stressed out. And so helping to manage stress by getting better sleep, staying fully hydrated, learning techniques like mindfulness, learning techniques like breath work, simple, free ways to just engage in a little bit of self-care can move you back into that sympathetic state. Believe it or not, cold water immersion or putting your face in cold water or allowing cold water to hit your face does the same thing. You might notice if you're a cold plunger or a cold shower person, and I hope all of you are, you might notice that when you get out of a cold shower or you get out of a cold plunge where you submerged your face or you even put your face in ice water, you'll notice that as you're drying off, you have this overwhelming sense of calm and yet alertness. You're clear, you're cognizant, you're awake, you're focused. You're not stimulated like you had 2 shots of espresso. You're actually just clear and cognizant. That is the parasympathetic state. It happens because when cold water hits our face, it activates something called the mammalian dive reflex. All mammals have this reflex, even if they're not aquatic, including human beings. And when mammals dive in the ocean, so when a dolphin or whale starts to dive deep into the ocean, the water temperature cools rapidly. As that cool water passes over their face, it puts them into a parasympathetic state. And why do you want to do that? Because you want to slow down the metabolism. You want to improve your alertness. You want to be more conscious of your surroundings. Usually there is less and less light as you go deeper and deeper into colder waters. So this mammalian dive reflex is germane to all mammals, and you can activate it by submersing yourself in cold water or running cold water on your face. Remember, one of my little secret techniques to getting good sleep, especially if you are a ruminating thinker, which a lot of you are, you lay down to go to sleep at night and your mind wakes up and you start ruminating about your day, is to do contrast therapy. And if you're blessed enough to have a sauna and a cold plunge, great. If you're not, you can use your regular shower. You can step into the shower, take a warm shower, and then turn around backwards, let the hot water run on your neck and your spine as warm as you can stand it. Then step out of that stream, turn it as cold as it will go, and then step back into that stream of water and just deal with it. Deal with it for a minute, let it hit your face. And then when you get out, you'll feel the benefits of that mammalian dive reflex. You can activate your sympathetic nervous system through breath work. This is one of the things that really relaxes you. I think I posted a video. Did I post a video this morning about me doing it with my son?
No, we're going to post it tomorrow.
Oh, I'm going to post it tomorrow. But I do breath work every single day. But my team's like, why are you saying that? So I went out this morning, grabbed my son out of bed, made him work out with me, and brought him out on the balcony and had him do some breath work with me. I just did 3 rounds of 10 breaths. And all I did was long, slow breaths in through the nose, filled my lungs, and then I went out through a straw, in through the nose, and out through a straw. On the 10th breath, I held my breath as long as I could to allow the carbon dioxide to build up, dilate my veins, and then I took another deep breath and held it. If you do this at night, you will also move yourself further into a parasympathetic state. And the more we do these techniques and the more consistent we are, the more we start beginning to bookend our sleep. I leave today at 12:45 in the morning out of Miami International Airport. I will fly 15 hours nonstop to Dubai. I will land in the Middle East at 11 p.m. And my first meeting is at 8 a.m. the next morning. I'm going to take you guys with me. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do when I get on that plane. So first of all, if I'm taking off at 12:45 in the morning, the last thing I'm going to do is eat when I get on the plane. I am not going to eat when my body thinks it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I will actually set my watch and or my iPhone, and I will make sure that my first meal is timed with the same hour of the day as my first meal here in the US. So if you eat breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast time, what you do is you advance that to your new time zone and you eat at the same time. We're so much more tied to digestion than we are even the circadian cycle of the sun. One of my favorite travel tips is not to eat during your normal sleeping window. Write that down. It's a free tip for you. It will change the way you travel. Do not eat during your normal sleeping window. So in other words, if you sleep from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And you live in Pennsylvania or New York or Florida, so you're on the East Coast, and you go to London and it's 6 hours ahead, that means that you're usually sleeping from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. your time, which means you're normally sleeping from 6 a.m. to noon London time. Do not eat before noon. If you do, you will wreck your circadian cycle and you will never adjust to that time zone. So I'm going to prove this. I'm going to take you guys with me. I'm going to go a long period without sleep. And because I'm going to be sleep deprived, I am also going to fast during that period, so I don't add an additional stressor. So remember, your gut does a lot of the healing work while you sleep. I post my sleep scores every day. One of mine last night were not my best. I think I got a 96% sleep score, which for me isn't the best, but it's a very good sleep score. But what I really focus on is deep sleep and REM sleep. And the reason why these are so important is during REM, for us to get into REM sleep, we have to be in a parasympathetic state. For us to get into deep sleep, we have to be in a parasympathetic state. We should shoot for an hour and 30 minutes of deep sleep every night. I talked about this yesterday, but this is when the glymphatic system in the brain which is the lymphatic system of the body, just in the brain, is eliminating waste from the brain. It's repairing cells in the brain. It's detoxifying the tissues in the brain. And it's regenerating, right? This is when our mitochondria are really, really active. So we talk about the sleep gut connection. It's a tad off topic, but I couldn't help it this morning. Do you have that ad? Yes. So I was in the gym this morning. And I have this weird little thing. I refuse to pay the $8 a month for Spotify. I don't know why. I refuse to pay for the last 10 years. My kids yell at me. I pay for 3 of my kids. I refuse to pay $8 to Spotify a month. I'm asking you to pay $45 a month to be a rule breaker, and I won't pay $8 a month for Spotify. So there's the oxymoron of the day. So I get the ads. So I'm in the gym this morning, and I'm listening to music, and I'm working out. And of course, one of my favorites, you know, a pharmaceutical ad comes on, and it's called Caplyta. Can we play it?
Yes.
Will they be able to hear it?
1 second.
Yep, let's fire that bad actor up. I want to highlight this because it has a lot to do with our gut brain. Our gut challenge today. I think you guys are going to enjoy this. You're all going to just feel like rushing out and getting on Caplyta. I mean, just wait for the exciting news. Go ahead and roll it. Can they hear it?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if you heard that whole thing, but here's my thing with this ad. So first of all, you got this beautiful woman. She's in a bed in the middle of the street, which is where I like to sleep too. It's a safe place to sleep. You just move your bed into the middle of a busy street. So she's got this beautiful bed. They're walking a nice little dog. The kids are there. Kids are so happy. Dad's happy. They're a couple. They, never fight. They're just walking down the street. Everything's great. And it says during clinical trials, movement and movement disorders and weight gain were not common, but Caplyta can cause serious side effects. Call your doctor about sudden mood changes, sudden behavioral changes, or suicidal thoughts. Call your doctor right away. Antidepressants may increase the risk in young adult of suicidal ideation. Elderly and dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. It's not approved for dementia-related symptoms. However, you should immediately report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, stiffness in your muscles, which may be life-threatening, uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent, muscle spasms, which may be permanent. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, dry mouth, stroke, and not often death. These aren't all the side effects in darkness of bipolar and type 1 and 2 depression. Caplyta can let you let in the light. So I was like, wait a second, can we rewind that back? Did it really say antidepressants increase the risk of suicidal ideation, of mood disorders, and suicidal thoughts? Did it really say that elderly and dementia patients have an increased risk of death or stroke? And did it actually say that one of the side effects was sudden mood changes, sudden changes in behavior, suicidal thoughts, and permanent muscle spasms? Okay. And now you're the asshole for wanting to put your children and your spouse on something that would actually restore the normal balance of neurotransmitters in the brain. It also talks about using this in combination with other drugs like lithium and other bipolar medications, and how you can do it, but the combination of those could be deadly, fatal, or cause permanent muscle injury. So when I think about the risks of what we're trying to do versus the risk of going the route of pharmaceuticals and chemicals and synthetics. And by no means am I telling you, if you're on an antidepressant or something else, not to follow your doctor's advice. What I am telling you is that so often in my career as a mortality expert in the mortality space, where we actually studied what made people die early. That was my job, to look at your medical records, to look at your demographic data and say, not where does this person fall on an actuarial curve, but what is going to result in their untimely death. And without a single shadow of a doubt, the leading cause of early mortality, the reason why the majority of Americans are not living healthier, happier, longer, more fulfilling lives are modifiable risk factors. And that is why I'm with you guys today. I am trying to modify your risk factors. You have the power to modify the risk factors that limit the quality of your life. We call this health span, not lifespan. We all want to live a long time, but nobody wants to live a long time suffering. Whatever age you are right now, think about where you're going to be in 30 years and what you would likely be willing to give up 30 years from today to simply be in the position that you are right now. If you watch an elderly person get up from a dinner table and you watch them slowly slide their chair back, have to put both hands on the counter, lean forward, press up with their arms, get to a standing position, hold the table for stability, find their cane, transfer their weight from the table to the cane, and then hobble out of the store. That is where we're headed if we don't modify our risk factors, right? That's why I put Dr. Minkoff on yesterday at 77, 78 years old, okay, and still running medium distance triathlons. The man swam 1.2 miles, biked 66 miles, and then ran a half marathon and came in second. And the one thing that struck me about what Dr. Minkoff said yesterday were the hundreds and hundreds of people in his category in the 40s and only the 2 people in his category in his current age group. That is what I'm trying to prevent for all of you. Guys, if you are or someone you love is suffering from a mental or a mood disorder, please do not take this as medical advice. You always seek the advice of a professional or counselor or mental health professional. But if they are suffering from a mental health disorder or a mood disorder, please think about healing, sealing, and repairing their gut. Please think about changing the toxins we're putting into our bodies that produce the neurotransmitters that create the mood that we are calling dysfunctional, right? Very often, we don't even define the diseases the way that we're trying to treat them. I will tell you, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times when I was a mortality expert, my role was to extract information from the medical record, to take the information from the medical record and put it into a mortality model, and then use that mortality model with demographic data to determine how many more months you had left on Earth. One of the biggest factors that I would put into that mortality model were things like unforeseen nutrient deficiencies. So for example, do you guys know what the 3rd leading cause of death is in America? It's not my opinion, by the way. You can look up the Harvard study. It was done in 2016. There was another study done in 2019 by Hopkins, which reconfirmed this. But the primary cause of death in America, in the world for that matter, is cardiovascular disease. The 2nd leading cause of death is cancer, which is at its highest rate in the history of modern mankind. We have the highest rates of childhood cancer right now. The 3rd leading cause of death is modern medicine. It's medical error. Medical error is the 3rd leading cause of death. Now think about that for a second. It is the 3rd leading cause of death in the industry designed to prevent death. If you lay that statistic on any other industry, it would be laughable. I mean, if you sold home security systems, but you are the 3rd leading cause of home invasion, you'd be out of business, right? If you are, I don't know, a roofer and you were the 3rd leading cause of roofing collapse, you'd be out of business. But we are going to this machine to get advice on how we are going to live healthier, happier, longer, more fulfilling lives. I'm going to give you one example. I believe that the most important compound in the human body, if you only had to pick one, is vitamin D3, cholecalciferol. We make this vitamin, also a hormone, also a calcium transport molecule. We make this nutrient, I'm just going to call it a nutrient for the moment, from sunlight and cholesterol. It is the only vitamin that human beings make on our own. When God made us, he made us with the ability to make one vitamin, one. The 2nd leading cause of morbidity in COVID was a clinical deficiency in vitamin D3. It is one of the most common deficiencies in the world. It's also very easy to supplement with. And so when you have a deficiency in vitamin D3, which I saw hundreds of times in the medical records, what happens is you have this clinical deficiency in vitamin D3 for a prolonged period of time. Eventually, you present to your doctor, your primary care physician, with rheumatoid arthritis-like symptoms. I'm not saying you have rheumatoid arthritis. I'm saying you have the same parallel symptoms. You wake up in the morning, your feet are sore and achy when you get out of bed, like you had a workout the night before. When you haven't, your low back and your knees and your hips are always stiff. It takes 45 minutes or longer to get the motor going in the morning. You have chronic, constant low back pain. It moves its way up the spine to your shoulders, and eventually it becomes very hard to make a tight fist without pain. You give those symptoms to the wrong physician. Again, I am not attacking modern medicine, but physicians are overwhelmed today. Some of these OBGYNs and pediatricians and other primary care doctors are seeing upwards of 35 patients a day. They have an average of 7 minutes to spend with a patient. So you give that information to the wrong physician. Here's what I saw in the medical record. They would say, you know what, Sally, you've got rheumatoid arthritis. No RA factors, no SED rates, no blood work, diagnosed you straight from your symptoms. You have rheumatoid arthritis. I'm going to put you on something called a corticosteroid. Corticosteroid is an anti-inflammatory, methotrexate, prednisone, and any number of corticosteroids. Well, we knew in the mortality space, because of the data, that if you started a corticosteroid, you had 6 years and 1 day until you were having a joint replacement. So it was so accurate that I would actually artificially advance your age 6 years and 1 day. I would schedule the joint replacement for you, and I would begin to reduce what's called your ambulatory profile, how well you ambulated, how well you walk. And as soon as you begin to reduce mobility, you can bring in, all the diseases that exacerbate with reduced mobility. So now, you bring in those diseases that exacerbate with reduced mobility. And then what you can do is you can predict the onset of, the severity of, and how quickly someone will succumb to that disease. So now let's wind that back. You died of a condition that you never should have had because of a surgery that wasn't required, because of a medication that was unnecessary, because of a diagnosis that was missed, over a simple nutrient deficiency. Had you taken 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3 with K2, you would have never been in that condition. If you just gotten natural sunlight and raised your level of cholecalciferol, you would have never been in that condition. Nutrient deficiencies lead to the expression of disease. I'm not saying all disease is a nutrient deficiency, but what I'm telling you is the human body needs nutrients to thrive. If you deprive it of vitamin D3, you will deprive it of its immune function. If you deprive it of its immune function, you leave it open to attack from all kinds of pathogens, including cancer. Every single one of you listening to this podcast right now has had cancer cells in your body at some time. Yes, you have. It's just that your immune system spotted them and killed them before they actually developed into tumors, before they caused symptomology. It's caused a metabolic shift. We shift the metabolism of a healthy cell into the metabolism of a sick cell. Every cancer cell that has ever been discovered, known to mankind, is not a foreign cell. It's your cell. These are your liver cells, your pancreatic cells, your lung cells, your breast cells. What they do is they shift their metabolism from being healthy to being sick. So how do we prevent this shift? And more importantly, if it does shift, how do we either shift it back, or how do we spot those cells and get rid of them before they proliferate? Things like fasting, cleaning up our water, cleaning up the toxins that go into our body, and having a healthy functioning gut. And I wish that I could have, I'm driven by this every day, because I wish that it was not prohibited by law for me to have picked up the phone and called any of those clients or patients, or even the treating physician. And that's why I have so much passion for this, because I saw it with my own eyes. And when I started talking about this, I got called a charlatan. I got accused of practicing medicine without a license. I got absolutely ripped to shred. I got shadow banned on social media. And all I was saying was, listen, see your mental health professional, see your cardiologist. I have no issues with therapy or primary care, but please, take the human body's capacity to heal itself seriously. Take some time and get some data on your body and put the raw material in the body that it needs to do its job. And so, that's what's so exciting is, we're trying to create this behavioral shift today. And by empowering you to heal and seal your gut and get on the journey to better self-care, you will empower somebody else to do it. And we can start keeping people out of the system, because once you get on that pharmaceutical hamster wheel, it's it's a crapshoot. And this ad, like I literally rewound the ad and played it again and rewound it and played it again. I was like, did they say death? Did they just say stroke? Did they just say permanent muscle spasms? Did they say antidepressants may cause increased suicidal ideation? Is that what that just said? Because I thought I was taking this to not be depressed. The whole idea of not being depressed is not to increase my suicidal ideative thoughts. And so it's out there in plain sight, but we ignore it. And what we think is that we are missing a chemical, we are missing a synthetic, we are missing a pharmaceutical, and very often we are just missing the raw material that our body needs to do its job. And so you want to see what the side effects are of methylated multivitamins, increased gastrointestinal motility, deeper sleep, increased REM sleep, increased deep sleep, better skin, better circulation called angiogenesis to the skin, improved production of collagen, elastin, and fibrin, better short-term recall, reduction in attention deficit disorder symptoms. Those are the side effects of multivitamins. So you choose your side effects. Okay, so back to day 3. Sorry, I got on my high horse about that, but that ad just hit me in the absolute wrong way. And I was just thinking to myself, man, we don't stand a chance in this country. It is so sad that we allow an industry to advertise directly to the consumer so that industry can control our media narrative. And when you're 75% of the operating budget of a media company, I don't care what news station you watch or where you get your information, if 75% of their budget is controlled by one entity, you better believe they will not speak out against that entity. And so, I need to build an army of people like you, like-minded people like you that have had material change in your life, not because you replaced it with a chemical, a synthetic, or pharmaceutical, because you began to operate properly from a physiologic standpoint. And I want you guys to be, the disciples, to go out there and help tell people how great you feel and how much your life has improved since you just started engaging in self-care. Okay, so this morning, we took two servings of Body Health. I think I posted that. Team's probably going to yell at me, but at least I made a video about it. Again, I talked about the necessity for amino acids yesterday. I won't bore you guys with that topic again, but most of us, again, we are not protein deficient. We are amino acid deficient. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. They are not proteins. If you're amino acid deficient, you cannot build healthy levels of collagen, elastin, fibrin in your skin. You can't make natural killer cells. You can't actually repair your muscles. So you have all kinds of consequences. The reason why amino acids are called essential is because they're essential for life and the body can't make them. Okay. I also got a ton of inbound questions about cholesterol. Boy, I always sort of seem to light the room on fire when I talk about cholesterol, but I really encourage you to watch the podcast that I did with Dr. Aseem Malhotra, one of the top cardiologists in the world. He also has a documentary called Do No Pharm, PHARM. Please, if you have time, watch that documentary. It's free. It will actually change your entire opinion on cholesterol. I got so many questions on it. I'm going to touch on it just briefly for a second. As I've said, I believe it's one of the most maligned and misunderstood compounds in the human body. We could do an entire, challenge on cholesterol. Cholesterol is not a fuel source. It is a construction material. We use it again to build cell walls, cell membranes, hormones. We use to make vitamin D3, cholecalciferol in our body. In the absence of cholesterol, you have impaired cell wall, cell membrane, hormone function, and you have an impaired ability to make vitamin D3. Very often, it is not the amount of cholesterol in your blood. Please write this down. It is the size of the cholesterol molecule. Let me give you a short example. If cholesterol was a tennis ball, the fuzzy yellow surface of the tennis ball would be a triglyceride, fat. Okay, so imagine that cholesterol is the tennis ball, triglyceride, fat is the fuzzy yellow surface. So triglycerides are transported around the bloodstream on the surface of cholesterol. If you remember from high school geometry that as the size of a sphere gets smaller, its surface area to volume ratio goes up. Why is that important? Because I'm going to show you how two identical cholesterol readings, one could be a marker for longevity and one could be a marker for cardiovascular risk, even though we treat these the same. So let's say that you have a elevated cholesterol. Your cholesterol is 200. Okay. Your LDL cholesterol is 200. Again, this is not to replace the advice of your physician, but it's just a concept we need to understand. So let's say you have 2 balls of cholesterol, 100 milligrams here, 100 milligrams here. Okay. So your cholesterol, LDL cholesterol is 200. They're basketballs. Okay. These basketballs are covered in fat, right? What happens if I add more fat? If I try to put more fat on those basketballs, they can't hold it. How do they increase their surface area? They go from being 2 basketballs to being 4 softballs. What if I add more fat? They go to being 8 baseballs. What if I add more fat? Now I have 16 golf balls. What if I keep adding fat? Now I have 32 little BBs. So I started with 2 basketballs. I ended with 32 little BBs. That is the same amount of cholesterol. I didn't change the volume of cholesterol. I changed the size of the cholesterol molecule. Those tiny little BBs, those are very dangerous. Why? Because they can pass through the arterial wall. They get eaten by something called a macrophage, and it starts the process of scarring, plaquing, narrowing, clumping, and atherosclerosis of the arteries. And so what I did was I didn't change the volume of cholesterol. I changed the size of cholesterol. What changed the size of cholesterol? The amount of blood fat. What raises our blood fat? Your insulin and your blood sugar. People that eat the most sugar have the highest blood fat. Full stop. People that eat the most sugar have the highest blood fat. Fat is not making you fat. Sugar is making you fat. We need to stop blaming the butter for what the bread did. Okay, so in other, guys, sorry, I'm getting on my high horse because I had so many questions about cholesterol. So the whole concept is, if we can actually control our blood sugar over our lifetime, a marker called hemoglobin A1C and another marker called insulin. If we can control our blood sugar and have it look like rolling hills, not like a heart monitor, which, by the way, was the underlying theme of everything that we did yesterday. Notice we still had sugars. You had papaya, you had pineapple, right? But we were well hydrated, and we also got healthy fats and high doses of protein. We also put amino acids in our body. So this is giving us a profile that if you were to actually measure your blood sugar yesterday and you followed the diet plan, you would see your blood sugar look like rolling hills. It didn't look like a heart monitor, right? It's these spikes and valleys that are very dangerous, because what happens when our blood sugar rises? Our insulin rises. What happens when insulin rises? You see, most of us think insulin's primary role is to lower blood sugar. That's not true. Its primary role is to block any other form of energy use in the body. So what it does is it slows or blocks the ability for you to burn fat. Why? Because it wants you to burn the sugar. It wants you to bring the sugar into the cell. So as insulin rises, we block fat metabolism. You block fat metabolism, fat starts to build up. Where does it build up? In the bloodstream. Well, what happens if fat builds up in the bloodstream? Cholesterol has to carry it. Well, how does it carry it? It decreases its size. What happens when cholesterol decreases its size? It becomes more dangerous. And so this is the sequence of events. And so if we understood that if we reduced our glycemic profile, if we reduced our sugars, we could actually decrease our fat, increase the size of our cholesterol molecule, and reduce our risk of cardiovascular disease. This is why hyperinsulinemia is highly correlated to cardiovascular disease. That's the mechanism. Okay, so remember that today we're going to have, I hope you guys found that helpful, and not a complete diversion from what you were expecting to get today. But man, my chat board just lit up with questions about cholesterol, and I really want to arm you guys with the information that, again, where you can actually take control of your cholesterol level yourself. You're in control of it. You don't, not a medication. I mean, you realize that only 15% of our diet, even our cholesterol in our diet, even shows up in the blood. 85% of our cholesterol is made by the liver. You want to reduce the production of cholesterol, reduce the amount of high glycemic sugars. So today we have Justin Mayer from Kettle and Fire. He's going to join our VIP call at 11. And he's going to talk about all things bone broth and gut health and so much more. He's actually a part of the team that I'm working with to try to affect some public policy. get Americans a little bit healthier. So breakfast this morning, I hope a lot of you guys can just raise your hands. Let me know if you actually followed the breakfast this morning with poached eggs, sweet potato, and sauerkraut. I know you don't think about sauerkraut and sweet potatoes unless they're in the French fried form as being for breakfast, but this is a really, really good breakfast with high amounts of fiber, soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, the prebiotic food for our bacteria, the probiotics, actual bacteria, and then of course the healthy proteins that we need. And you can swap that out for tofu. So, and then we're going to have our mid-morning hydration. Usually my team makes it for me today. Oh, they did. I was about to hammer you guys. Why does it look so brown? What's in there? Dude, that is delicious. Did you guys make this morning? Who came up with this? I did. Man, I'm great. I'm good. 16 ounces of water, 4 slices of cucumber, and a teaspoon of grated ginger. That is delicious. I love the way ginger tastes. So if you made that today, congratulations. Today's lunch is salmon and avocado salad with fermented veggies. You'll see the fermented veggie theme kind of working our way through here. You don't have to keep up this volume of fermented veggies in your diet all the time. I'm trying to repopulate the gut right now, which is why you see so much fermented veggies. I am a huge fan of those, huge fan of bone broths. Especially when we're trying to heal and seal the gut. Remember, these omega-3 fatty acids from things like salmon, they calm inflammation. While avocado and fermented veggies kind of nourish our gut with healthy fats and the probiotics. So this is really an intelligently put together protocol so that we are actually using food to accomplish our task. So 20 to 30 minutes before lunch, remember to take one Body Health Gut Defense. This is going to strengthen your gut lining. Remember we talked yesterday about those biofilms that protect nasty bacteria. They also line the interior of our gut. And so those biofilms we want to dissolve so that we can eliminate them. Very often people that don't eat raw dairy but eat high volumes of dairy actually will secrete up to a gallon of mucus the first week that they stop those types of foods. So you may actually be secreting mucus, which is the mucoid plaque linings from your gut over the next 3 days. That's perfectly normal. That's why we're going to take the digestive enzymes to help really emulsify and break down the food before it enters our gut. And then today's mid-afternoon snack, one of my favorites, is a ginger coconut yogurt bowl. Remember, we're going to take a quarter cup of coconut yogurt. You can get coconut yogurt unsweetened at any health food store. You can even get it at Whole Foods. A teaspoon of grated ginger and a teaspoon of chia seeds. Chia seeds are really cool. If you've ever put them in water and watched them turn really, really fuzzy, they're great prebiotic, and they're an amazing source of soluble and insoluble fiber. So mix the ginger and the chia seeds into the into the coconut yogurt, and just enjoy it chilled. At a later date, I'll allow you to add a little monk fruit or even a teaspoon of organic maple syrup, but I'm trying to keep the glycemic profile low. But in the future, we can do that too. Some of my favorite snacks are raw yogurts or raw coconut yogurts, or even coconut creams with a teaspoon of monk fruit or a teaspoon of raw organic maple syrup. And then I put a fistful of grain-free granola in there, and then a couple of pine nuts. Mix that up, and I promise you that will be your new Ben & Jerry's. You want to satisfy a really intense sweet tooth? Try that recipe. It'll be your new Ben & Jerry's, and it is guilt-free eating. Very low in carbohydrates, low in high glycemic sugars, high in healthy fats, and very high in proteins. Coconut yogurt is also full of, just like cow-based yogurt, is full of probiotics. So wrapping up day 3, man, I can't believe I already talked for 45 minutes. This time goes so fast. I really hope that those of you that are not VIPs become VIPs. I've got a couple hours to spend with you guys. This month, I think I charge $47 for the VIP now. And in November, I'm going to raise it to $97, but I really do pour myself into that VIP group. So, guys, this is the month to give it a try. So you've taken massive action, by supporting your digestion and dialing down your stress and optimizing your sleep. I mean, and these are crucial steps towards creating the healthiest version of yourself. So I want you to take a moment and just reflect on the changes, really try to get in touch with your body and see if you can feel that shift. Like if you've stuck to the diet, which I hope that you have, if you've been drinking the hydrogen water and you've taken the supplements, just if you've trusted me for these 3 days, really sort of focus on how am I feeling? Do I feel more mentally clear? Do I feel more alert, more cognizant? How were my sleep scores last night if I'm tracking my sleep? Because this challenge may be wrapping up, but this journey that we're on together is just beginning. This is why, even if you don't become a Rule Breaker or VIP, I try to put so much information out there in the public domain for free. There's a link on my Instagram called What's in Gary's Kitchen. You can see my favorite recipes. I hope that you're sharing these challenges with your loved ones and your friends and your family and getting them excited to do these things together. You're almost there, so don't stop now. I wouldn't mind if we just took one or two. Can I take one or two questions? No, we don't have the ability to do that. Okay. All right, guys. So what is our final meal for today? Salmon and avocado. Oh gosh, this looks so good. Salmon and avocado with salted and fermented vegetables. So congratulations, guys. You made it through the 3-day gut challenge. Like I said, it's just the beginning. Your gut started to heal. Your inflammation is decreasing. Your bacteria are beginning to repopulate. You will, if you stay the course, you will notice the difference from these things to kind of key in on that we normally don't pay attention to. How regular are my bowel movements? Ideally, you should be waking up, and within 45 minutes of waking every day, you should be having a bowel movement. As we talked about yesterday, again, nobody likes to talk about this, but your stool should not float; it should sink. And the reason for that is we want to actually be emulsifying and digesting the fats in our foods and not having them remain in our stool. The best way to change that is to be using digestive enzymes to break those down before they enter your gut. So the digestive enzymes are super important. Increase your amount of fermented vegetables. Increase the amount of whole foods that you eat, and do yourself a favor and just make yourself bulletproof by clearing out your cabinet and not having the highly processed foods even around for you to be tempted by. Okay, so we're gonna move over to the VIP. I'm going to talk about the two-week health gut continuation plan. I'm going to take questions. I know we've got Justin Mayer coming on to take questions from you guys, but I really appreciate all of you for the trust and confidence that you've put in me, for joining this gut challenge. I hope that you become VIP Rule Breakers, but if not, you are always welcome on these. You're always welcome on these challenges. Healing your gut is a process. It takes some time for your microbiome to fully balance out, but you've made great strides. So by continuing your journey is really crucial, guys. So I hope that you stick to it. And I invited everybody to become Rule Breakers. Sounds amazing. Here are my final thoughts. Stick to it. Be strong. Be in touch with yourself. Be mindful. Practice those techniques for stress that we talked about before. Because when you're in a rest and digest state, you're in a state of healing. Thank you guys so much. I hope to see you guys in the VIP Rule Breakers. We'll see you there in about 6 minutes. And I'll see you guys on the next challenge. All right, guys. VIPs, we're back. We're back in business. Hey, Rule Breakers. I forgot to announce this on the previous Zoom, but I'm giving away 5 bundles of all of the Gut Reset Essentials to 5 of you. All you have to do is just drop a comment talking about your experience with the challenge and what you like the most, and my team is going to choose 5 of you, and I'm going to send you an entire bundle that was required for the Gut Reset Challenge. What I'd love for you to do, if you've actually purchased the bundle and you've gone through the gut reset challenges, I'd love for you to give this to somebody that you think could use it and make it free for them to go through the gut reset challenge. All of this will be recorded so they can do it on their own. So Justin Mares from Kettle and Fire is going to join us now. Let's welcome him and give him some, allow him to give him some background on himself and his experience with gut health. Hey,
Hey guys.
what part of the world are you in, man? It looks sunny. Are you in Florida?
I am actually. I just got to Florida yesterday.
Oh, right on. When did you come see me, bro?
I think we're hanging out this weekend at Eudaimonia, right?
Okay. Oh, you're gonna be there? That's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Are you? What part of Florida are you in? You in West Palm then?
I'm in Miami for now. Headed to West Palm tomorrow.
Dude, you're right around the corner. I'm in Miami.
I know.
Should have come over. I would have gotten you a chair. So guys, Justin Mares from Kettle and Fire, one of my absolute favorites. He's a champion for the same causes that I am, you know, trying to change public policy, trying to get corruption out of our food supply, and really trying to message to the masses about the importance of whole foods. So Justin, for the people that don't know you, could you give them a little background on yourself, who you are, what your mission is, you know, how you and I got together?
100%. Yeah. So my background, you know, about 8 years ago, I got really into paleo diet, like eating clean, all these sorts of things. I was doing CrossFit in San Francisco and was looking for ways to help with recovery. And around the same time, my brother, who I ended up starting Kettle and Fire with, you know, he was playing soccer, tore everything in his knee. And after like tearing practically everything that you can tear, was also looking for foods you could help with recovery. And so the two of us sort of started, we had a doctor recommend that we should start incorporating bone broth into our diets. And at that time, there was like literally no one making anything that was high quality, grass fed, you know, organic, all these things. And so it started us on this journey of understanding and digging into like, can we make, you know, the world what we view as the world's best bone broth? And secondly, just learning more and more about how wild, messed up the food system is and how basically we're facing a chronic disease crisis, largely in part because our food system is toxic and, you know, poisoning almost everyone that engages in it, that isn't incredibly conscious about their health. And so, you know, we started the company 8 years ago. We've been working on it since then, and recently have been shifting more and more to do some more policy work and to think more about like, what are ways that we could address the chronic disease crisis at the root, you know, even beyond Kettle and Fire, like policy change, looking at gut health, all these different kinds of things. So that's like the 30-second view of my story.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Kettle and Fire, because I don't want people to get it confused with bouillons. You know, a lot of times we make broth from bouillon cubes. I mean, my whole life growing up, my mom would buy the little bouillon cubes and chicken stock or beef stock or whatever it was, really, really high in sodiums, just basic sodium chloride, which is iodized table salt. And not the healthiest or most natural versions of bone broth. But, you know, I always recommend bone broth. We actually connected because his sales jumped when I did a challenge for a 3-day water fast. And, you know, I recommended that everybody use his Kettle and Fire bone broth because it's organic and it comes from really good grass-fed, finished beef. Some of them. He also has a vegan, vegetarian one. He has chicken stock, but I use the beef bone broth, and I had people ease into the fast and ease out of the fast on the bone broth, and it made it a lot easier for people. We got tons of comments about this was the easiest 3-day fast that I had done because I eased into it and eased out of it, and we used Justin's product. So can you just give us a little background, just, you know, what's in bone broth? Why is it so important? What do you get from bone broth that you don't get from other foods? And you know, what makes Kettle and Fire so special? I think you're muted. Yeah, you're muted, Justin.
Sorry, I can't unmute.
All right, you're off now.
So there we go. Yeah, so I think from a very high level, there's a couple things like bouillon and bone broth are very different products. So bouillon is basically, they're taking broth, oftentimes they're adding a bunch of additives or unnatural ingredients. They're turning it into a powder and then putting it in like a little cube that you can throw into a soup or something, generally for flavor and not for nutrition and not for nutrient value. Bone broth is very different. So for, you know, literally thousands of years, there's a long cultural history of humans consuming bone broth. Like basically all of our ancestors, every ancestral culture that that we've come across, that their food cultures have a history of making use of joints, connective tissues, bones, marrow, and the like, and cooking down a bone broth and getting all of the collagen, amino acids, and other nutrients that exist in the connective tissue and in the bones. And so what makes kind of us special relative to the rest of the companies out there is when we came on the scene, there was literally no one making bone broth the way that we make it today. Like your average, the other companies that are making a broth or a stock or even making something they call a bone broth, oftentimes they're using short cook times, which means that there's not enough time for the nutrients to break down and really, seep into the broth. It also means that our bone broth tends to be higher protein than others on the market because there's a lot of time where we can break down the connective tissue, the bones, things like that. We also use extremely high quality ingredients. So all of our, on the beef, which I know you're a big fan of, it's all like grass-fed and grass-finished animals. So we use long cook times, very, very high quality ingredients.
And when you say long cook times, how long does it take to like make a bone broth? So you put it in this big, stainless steel vat,
massive vats. Yeah.
Yeah. Massive vat with water. And then do you boil it or do you simmer it? Like, how do you extract all the nutrients from it?
Yeah. So we simmer it basically for somewhere between 16 to 24 hours. Beef is on the longer side. Chicken is about, 16. And basically as you like check on the broth, you can see it's just getting cooked down and down. And that is sort of the nutrients releasing and the tough connective tissue that is often attached to the joints, the cartilage, things like this, that are incredibly rich in amino acids, proteins, and things like that. With enough time, with heat, and with an acid which we add, it effectively like helps these different components break down into small little components that our bodies can digest and that make the bone broth like very rich and derives like most of the nutrient value. And so that's sort of like the main things I would say that differentiate us as a company is we're just using very long cook times, super, super high quality ingredients. And that package allows bone broth, in my view, to be one of the like most nutrient dense foods that people are going to eat on a regular basis. I think that, last thing I'll say is just, I think that if you look at the average American diet, the average like Westerner diet, frankly, basically people are eating a bunch of muscle meat. They're eating a bunch of things that are high protein. They're eating a bunch of like, proteins and the like, but they're not getting a lot of the like collagens, amino acids, a lot of the things that are really the building blocks for, our skin health, our joint health, our gut health, things like that.
Okay, so let's fire up some live questions. This is my favorite part. Justin can field them, I can field them, but this is where the rubber meets the road, guys. So why don't we bring some folks up so they can ask us some questions? How long do we have with you? Do we have till 11:50, Justin?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's when we're going to go into my kitchen. Hi, Heather.
Hi, Gary. How are you? We're back this time. Dan is joining us.
Hey, guys.
A couple questions. I said you got to put a hat on. So we're back in California, but we're awake and
put a hat on.
So put a hat on in here.
I think you look fine, Dan.
Thank you.
I think he looks pretty great for 64. He's doing amazing.
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
And I'm your age, Gary, 54. So I feel you.
Come on.
Yes. So we've been on this journey, holistic journey for a long time. We love Kettle and Fire. We discovered it a few years ago and use it, to make soups. I use it even as a base if I'm going to make like grass-fed, a type of beef stroganoff type things, and throw coconut milk. And it's just so great. We were curious about bison. I don't know if you ever go down the bison road, but is all bison grass-fed, grass-finished? Is that just a normal thing because they're not in CAFOs? Or is the bison world getting a little bit corrupt?
Yeah. So many like, I mean, in a more like historical context, of course, like all bison was grass-fed, grass-finished. Today, a lot of the bisons on the market today are living the vast majority of their life on pasture, at least the operations that we've talked to. But almost all of them have some sort of like grain finishing process. And so that's largely, frankly, because the American consumer is not used to very low fat, very lean muscle meat. And so I think that there were some like very early bison herds that were basically grass-fed and grass-finished, and people were just like, this is too gamey. This is not like good for me. And so most of the herds, at least from the ranchers we've talked to in the US, are doing like some sort of grain finish at the end, which is, this is actually an area that we've been digging into because I would love to launch a bison bone broth at some point. We just are sort of on the hunt for a super, super high quality sourcing partner that does do the grass-fed, grass-finished, and can meet the amount of bison that we need from a bone supply standpoint.
Yeah, that's good to know because I also know some farms. We, being here in Los Angeles, we have great farmer markets. We really try to support.
You really do.
We do. And I try to avoid even like Whole Foods with Mary's and those brands. I really try to find the local small farmer. We found a great one at our local farmer's market, and they do grass-fed carrot finished. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Wow.
I haven't. That sounds amazing.
But they said no, and we bought some chicken and made it last night. And we made it to go into Gary's soup, but it was so good that we ate it.
Wow.
And so
That's so awesome.
I was like, this is the best chicken. It was like butter. I've never had chicken that had that kind of texture. It was incredible. So anyways, we're going to go back to the farmer's market and support them because it is very expensive, but it's worth it. I feel like it's more expensive to go down the route of trying to find out what's wrong with you and spend all that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I promise you chronic disease is way more expensive than what you're paying for your food.
Agreed. And then one last question for you, Gary, really
Sure.
quick. Wondering when you Advil, Tylenol, any kind of pain med, how disruptive are they in the gut? Is there a better way? You like Hilma, that brand, when you've got a headache or a hangover?
I do like Hilma. They are very destructive to the gut and even do put a lot of pressure on the liver. I find that the majority of time when we have headaches, it's one of two things. It is a reduction in the pH of the blood, so you become more acidic. Truly, breath work can help with this. I actually have an oxygen concentrator here in the house. Breathing oxygen for about 7, 8, 10 minutes will actually knock any kind of headache or hangover out because it actually restores the alkalinity to the blood. Try drinking some water with bicarbonate in it, or a little bit of the Arm & Hammer baking soda, and truly try to focus on doing breath work. About 8 minutes of breath work will wind down almost any kind of headache or hangover that you have. And then the second thing is the majority of the reason why we get diffuse headaches, which are not coming from the brain. Remember, there's no pain receptors in the brain. So the pain receptors are on the dura, the covering of the brain. It hates being stretched. It hates being contracted, is dehydration and lack of sodium. And so very often a heavy pinch of Baja Gold sea salt and 10 ounces of drinking water and a little breath work will knock any kind of headache out.
Great. I'm going to start using that. Okay.
Thanks, guys. All right, let's fire up our next question. Great seeing you, Heather.
You too.
Hey, David.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. You are driving.
Buddy.
Okay.
I am driving.
Okay.
I have to be at the airport. So
eyes on the road, and I will just listen to your question.
yeah. I was actually diagnosed with heart failure 3.5 years ago. At 38%. I got it back to 65.
Ejection fraction?
What was that?
Your ejection fraction?
Yes.
Okay.
And back in July, I went back for another echocardiogram and was back at 38%.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing everything in my power to change the diet. And, so I wanted your thoughts on, supplements and diet for heart failure.
Yeah. So, three things. First of all, don't change your medications if you're on any medications. But three things you can add. There's something called Vinia resveratrol. Resveratrol is something that restores vascular laxity, meaning the pliability to the vessels. It's also really, really good for blood flow. I'm also a big fan of nanoparticulate turmeric and curcumin, which is micellized turmeric and curcumin. Turmeric and curcumin that has been actually put through an aggressive SIB process to actually turn it into a liquid and reduce the size of the turmeric and curcumin molecules so that it is actually more bioavailable. Poor circulation is the definition of low ejection fraction. And very often our circulation is low because our vasomotor activity is low. If you start to clamp down on the 63,000 miles of small blood vessels in the body, you push that blood into the larger blood vessels in the body, putting more pressure on the heart and reducing the ejection fraction. The ejection fraction is a combination of the heart's capacity to contract and then how much pressure is on it when it releases blood into those veins. So if you can restore vascular laxity, increase vasomotor activity, which red light therapy is also very good for, then we have seen in our clinical practice, ejection fractions improve. Red light, resveratrol, micellized turmeric, and curcumin.
No, the other thing I'm doing is looking into stem cell treatment therapy in Antigua. I was just wondering your thoughts on stem cell therapy.
I have seen, I have an entire exosome and stem cell library. And I have actually read some studies outside the US where combinations of stem cells and exosomes or mesenchymal stem cells, which are called MSCs, they're derived from something called Wharton's jelly, which is the gelatinous substance in the lining of the cord, of the umbilical cord. So mesenchymal stem cells are where I've seen all of the research on cardiovascular conditions. So I would just make sure they're giving you mesenchymal stem cells, MSCs. Make sure that they are not derived from cord blood. They are derived from Wharton's jelly. That seems to be where all the promising research is. Okay. Awesome.
All right.
When people call when they're driving.
Buddy.
You're very welcome, brother. Drive safe.
I'm trying to get a hold of you for 3 days.
Okay, well then I'll take the call in the car.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right.
Hi, Linda.
Thank you.
Linda, I talk to you all the time. It's so good to see you again.
I miss it, actually.
Yeah, how's your daughter doing?
She's good. She's working on stuff, so she still has a little bit further to go.
Linda, you know better than to show me all the tequila bottles in the background when you're on a Zoom.
Oh, those aren't mine. They came with the house.
Okay, they're not. Who thinks those are not Linda's, guys? I don't know how they got there.
That's so funny. But yes, my daughter misses you, Gary. I think she really misses your tutelage. So I take notes for her.
Thank you.
I
She's
have
amazing.
a lot of questions, but because Kettle Fire's on, I do have a question about his product. How do you keep it stabilized on the shelf? Because I feel like when things are on the shelf and they're boxed, it loses nutritional value. So I would think you go to like a frozen product versus different ones. So I have that, but I also have another medical question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are very few categories where you can have a shelf stable product that doesn't actually seem to lose nutrient value. And basically bone broth is one of those. And I'll explain why. So if you think about cold pressed juice versus a naked juice or something like that, a naked juice basically looks brown because they're treating it with heat, as part of the bottling process. And that heat treatment denatures a lot of the micronutrients and other sensitive polyphenols and other things that are specific to plant compounds mainly. So when you're for us, when we are making something shelf stable, we're making bone broth, we're heating it to a certain point, which the USDA, FDA consider kill step. And then at that point, we can fill it into our packages in an environment that is completely sterile. And so there's nothing in the box or in the product that can basically react with the product itself and cause it to oxidize and go bad. And so because it's more of a animal protein, nutrient dense, different composition, and doesn't have a lot of the sensitive plant polyphenols, chlorophyll, things that oxidize and go bad quickly. We've run tests on frozen versus our stuff, and the collagen, protein density, amino acid content, it basically doesn't seem to make a difference from a nutrient density standpoint.
Even over a longer standpoint. Even over if it was on my shelf for 6 months or 8 months or a year.
I mean, so we've seen that. I mean, proteins in general, proteins, amino acids, and things like that are very stable compounds, whereas a lot of the micronutrients and things like that, chlorophyll, polyphenols, all of that that tend to be more associated with plant and other minerals and compounds are stable and do oxidize and go bad, which is why vegetables kind of go brown, as they oxidize, and that's sort of a sign of them going bad. Whereas if you took bone broth and left it out on the counter for 8 months, like it would probably grow mold. It would do like a bunch of stuff that you necessarily don't want to eat. But the core product and the proteins are not like denaturing and losing a lot of like the nutrient value.
Okay.
Gary, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, a lot of time in cold pressed juices, there's a process where they actually use pressure. So, that you can put preservatives into the juices, which I'm not a huge fan of, but there is a process where, and you can see it on the label for cold pressed juices, where they actually take the juice and they move it into a machine while it's in the bottle, and they actually basically put it in a hyperbaric chamber, and they drop it to 18,000 feet. Rapidly. We couldn't survive this. They drop it to 18,000 feet. And what it does is that pressure actually bursts the wall of the bacteria. So if there were salmonella or E. coli or some other pathogen in there, what happens is the pressure, which actually doesn't cause a reduction in the nutrients, can actually get rid of the bacteria by lysing the wall of the bacteria. Okay, so let's get to your next question, and then I'll fire up the next one. I want to try to do these rapid fire.
When we're healing our gut through this, like the challenge, as you heal your gut, would that assume that you talked about your 80% of your testosterone is made in your stomach?
Mm-hmm.
Would that, as you heal your gut, would that help increase like your low T3?
So let me back that up. 80% of your testosterone is not made in the stomach. 80% of your T3 hormone, which is not testosterone, that's thyroid hormone.
Sorry.
T3. Yeah, it's made outside. So in men, 100% of their testosterone is made in their testicles, but so 80% of it is made outside of the thyroid. To be hyper technical, it's made in the liver, the gut, and the periphery. It's called deiodinization. We deiodinize T4 into T3. And so this happens outside of the thyroid. And the key point of this is that deficiencies in selenium and thiamine are highly linked to an impairment in this process. Deficiencies that come from the MTHFR gene mutation are highly linked to this process. And deficiency in methylfolate has a direct correlation. So these are the three big nutrients: methylfolate, selenium, thiamine, that we try to supplement folks with that have low T3 to restore the conversion of T4 into T3 outside of the thyroid. I'm sort of pointing to this gut area in general because it's technically liver, gut, and periphery.
But healing the gut has no effect on that. Like,
healing the gut has a massive effect on that.
Because if you're doing all those supplementations and it's still low,
right?
Gut health is the next factor.
Gut health is the next factor. That is exactly it. Yes. And you can also think about, different autoimmune conditions, are very often linked to viruses, bacteria, pathogens. They're linked to heavy metals, mold spores, mycotoxins. How do these things enter the body? They don't just magically get to walk into our biome. They walk through the single cell layer lining of the gut. And so our very first line of defense, what protects us from our outside world, that keeps our gut outside of our body. And remember, our gut is outside of our body. It's external to our body. And it is as external to our body as the surface of our skin. The back of your forearm is contiguous with the inside lining of your gut. But when it goes down the back of your esophagus and gets into the gut, it's only a single cell layer. And that's why it needs to be nourished.
But once you heal your gut, it'll help with all the stuff going inside. But what happens to all of the microtoxins and the molds that are already in your blood system? Like, how do you detox that?
Well, so we have the ability to methylate heavy metals the same way that we have the ability to methylate light metals. B12 is a metal, magnesium is a metal, zinc is a metal. So we actually can methylate, we can actually remove lead, we can remove mercury, but we do that very, very slowly. Now, the immune system, 70% of it is sitting outside of the gut. So if it's constantly waging a war in the gut, it's distracted, for lack of better words, and the majority of the immune response wraps around the gut, and it doesn't enter the blood and actually go and remove the toxins and the mycotoxins and the viruses that are circulating around in our bloodstream. As soon as you heal and seal the gut, your immune system strengthens. You actually see your immune profile improve, your neutrophilic, lymphocytic, monocytic ratios. You can actually see these things improve on your blood test. And this is because your immune system is less busy fighting nonsense that it doesn't need to be fighting right outside of your gut. So if you heal and seal the gut, you strengthen the immune system. Now your immune system can go wage war on what's going on in the bloodstream.
Molds, viruses, mycotoxins.
We call this low-grade infections.
Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Great talking to you, Linda. Justin, you have a question? You just popped up. You like to ask yourself anything? Is it Karina? I think it's Karina. Karina. Yeah, you have to have your video on, guys. So Karina will just put you back in line. Oh, and there's the good doctor, Adrian. How are you, my friend?
Hi. Yes.
You're on deck. Yeah, we accelerated you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I've been following my own protocol for a long time, and I follow various people, Hyman and many
I'll be here
Dr.
Monday.
Yeah. So I'm in Singapore. So I've been following you for probably a year, right? I know all your stories. My question is about bone broth. I just came across a book in the library about bone broth. And if I were to cook the bones from beef, pork, and all that, and I were to freeze it, how long does it lose the nutrients over time when I pick it out and I thaw it and I cook it again?
That's a great question.
I mean, it really shouldn't. Basically, as I was saying previously, when you're freezing something, it sort of tends to put that thing mostly in a state of stasis. And because a lot of the animal proteins in bone broth, in bones, in connective tissue and the like are relatively complex, they're relatively stable. They don't seem to degrade if you freeze and then reheat it later. There's quite a few. There's actually some companies in the US. Gary, you'd probably know this better than I do, but there are actually quite a few companies that will take human stem cells, human bone marrow, things like that, put it on ice for 20, 30, 40 years. Yeah. I actually have my marrow cells on ice just in case something happens to me later in life. But and they can basically warm them back up and re-inject them in the body, and they work like they did 20, 30 years ago whenever they were harvested. I don't know, Gary, if you have any other thoughts.
No, I mean, it's pretty common. And we know that berries, for example, that are flash frozen in a ripened state actually retain polyphenols and other nutrients at a higher rate than even vine ripened berries that are actually put into the grocery store, because they continue to ripen at an accelerated rate. You can stop the ripening process and preserve the nutrients. I mean, that's well documented in the literature. I'm not as familiar with frozen bones and bone broth. I mean, that's a good question for Justin, but freezing process tends to halt the degradation of the nutrients. And it's not really that they're degrading, they're just moving into their next state, right? And so it stops the vine, ripening process once fruits and vegetables have been picked. It actually increases their nutrient density. I would assume that it would be the same thing for bones and bones.
Because what we do is I'll buy 3 kg of meat, and my wife will do the cooking, and we put miso, and then cook it up, put it packaged nice, put it in the freeze, either the freezer or the fridge, the cold ones, and then take it out day to day, just take. And then I don't put any other table salts. It's horrible. Everything's natural, herbs and all that. So it's all natural. We don't buy things out there, nothing packaged. Very important, because as I shared yesterday, my son has 5 neurological conditions, so I have to be very careful of what he eats.
Yes. Yeah, not to excite the neuroinflammatory condition. Interesting fun fact, if you follow the blue zones, Singapore has one of the highest meat consumptions per capita in the world, and one of the life expectancies.
Yes. Apparently the 7th blue zone.
Amazing, Adrian. Great talking to you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you
for dialing in. You get the distance award. Karina, I think we're bringing you up now. No, it's not Karina. We've got Leah. Hi, Leah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you for parking.
Talk right now with both of you guys. Thank you so much. I guess I just have like a broad question. So I feel great. I wake up great. My sleep is good, but I think my caffeine levels are wrecking my body as like, I'm just addicted to caffeine. I drink a lot of coffee, but I drink like coconut milk lattes. So I think it could be worse, but I guess I know I probably need to just bite the bullet and just stop taking as much caffeine, but any recommendations, or is too much? I don't know.
Yeah, you know, I find, and I want Justin to have a chance to answer this too. I find that a lot of times people aren't as addicted to coffee as they think they are. They're actually addicted to the action or the taste of drinking coffee. Yeah.
Yes.
So you're probably one of those people. So there is a really, really good decaffeinated coffee called Pure. And their version of decaffeinated coffee is called Calm. I don't have any association with them, for the record. They're mold-free, low acidity, sustainably sourced, and organic. Amazing. Like, I mean, they have surgically removed any toxicity from their process. I'm a huge fan. And what I love about them is they actually make even the decaffeinated coffees in tea bags. So you can actually take them with you. I actually will sometimes take their packets with me because my wife is a major coffee drinker. I drink coffee every day. Sometimes when we travel, I take their travel packets because they stay fresh. You rip them open, you just steep them like a tea bag. What I would do is I would start to replace, if you drink voluminous amounts of coffee, I would replace first every other cup with decaf. You will not notice the difference. And then what I would start to do is work from the later parts of the day forward. So that I would start to end the caffeinated coffee that you're drinking in the last part of the day and start that as a decaffeinated process and bring it forward. The problem with most decaffeinated coffee is they decaffeinate coffee beans with formaldehyde. And that is a way that they extract the caffeine from the coffee bean. That is a no-fly zone. You don't want to take something that is non-toxic and make it toxic just to get the caffeine out. So I would suggest that you use something like a Pure, their Calm version, and replace every other cup of coffee with Pure Calm. And then I would work from your latest cup of coffee back. And I think you'll find that it's a lot easier to get off of the multiple, caffeinated coffees and work your way down to 1 or 2 cups a day and be fine.
And then should I just plan on just getting used to black? Is that like the best?
No, you don't have to get used to black. I put the acid kicking minerals in my coffee every single day. I love the acid kicking minerals. I like the vanilla flavor. It also makes it creamy. They've got MCT oils. So I'm a huge fan of that.
Website, the link for that?
Yeah, we should have it. Yep, we did. We put it on the Ultimate Human website. And then Justin, if you have anything to add, fire away.
Yeah, my only thing is I found that diluting, like basically trying to dilute more with water or I add coconut milk to a bunch of my coffee is really, really useful and gives me a boost. I also found that the compulsion to drink more coffee and want more caffeine went away if I consumed like 20 to 30 grams of protein within the first like hour or two of waking up. Like that seemed to help a lot with sort of a lot of the desire to start consuming things. And once I realized like, oh, I'm giving my body protein within a couple hours of waking up, a lot of those cravings kind of like went by the wayside.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I love these. Hi there.
Hi there. Hi, Gary. Hi, Justin.
Is it Sarb?
It is, yeah. Hi.
Pleasure to meet you, Sarb.
Nice to meet you. My question is, if someone's got Crohn's and it's inflamed in the duodenum area, how is it the best way to sort of reduce that inflammation? Because the consultants are saying that if that continues, it's going to turn into like strictures.
Yeah, so the duodenum is a very, very, very rare area for Crohn's disease to attack. The duodenum is the very short tube exiting the stomach, going past the gallbladder, even before you enter the small intestine. Okay, it's called the duodenum or the duodenum, and that's just that very, very, very small area, but lots going on there. So let's think about what's happening in the duodenum. First of all, you're having the secretion of bile, which emulsifies fat, essentially coming from the liver, being stored in the gallbladder, and then pulsed into that area. The best thing that you can do is to do a 3 to 7 day water fast. If you really want to see that tissue heal and seal and repair, you've got to put it into a fasted state. And what that will do is it will stop the secretion of bile into that area of the gut. It will allow the pH of that area to return to normal. And then you will see the endothelial cells begin to repair. There's also a product that repairs the endothelial lining called EndoCalyx, EndoCalyx. That is an excellent product to repair the endothelial lining. And since you're in, by the sound of your voice, you're in Europe, you can order a product called ToxyPrevent. It's manufactured in Europe. You order their upper GI formula. They have two formulas, upper and lower GI. Order their upper GI formula. It is a specific binder meant to bind toxins that accumulate in the upper part of the gastrointestinal tract. I've literally seen miracles just by people taking that form of zeolite binder.
Okay, that sounds really good. Thank you. And just
You're
a quick
welcome.
question to Justin. We try to make our own bone broth and just get the bones from the butchers. And we just boil it for 6 hours. So I'm guessing your bone broth, which I've not tried, but we will give it a go, is mostly more longer, isn't it? It will be more nutritious.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and for
Yeah.
cooking on your own at home, I would definitely recommend longer cook times. Like, you can even see, you know, if you cook something, like make 2 batches, compare like a 4 to 6 hour cook versus a 24-hour, there's going to be a huge
Okay.
difference in terms of the, like how gelatinous and how rich the product is. Almost all of
Right.
that is the proteins moving, you know, leaving the bones and entering the broth.
Can they get
Okay.
the Kettle and Fire in the UK?
Through some, I think you buy it online in the UK and through a couple select retailers. Yeah.
I think you can get it through
Okay, we'll
Health,
see.
HEALF.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's
I
we'll-
think I saw it on there. Health.
Yeah, we went on there for the gut products, but I couldn't get one of your gut products, which was Gut Restore,
Okay.
Gary. So I'll have a look for the bone broth. But yeah, so we need to look for how we can get hold of that in the UK.
Sounds amazing.
Okay,
You're
thank
posting what?
you.
We're posting the link to Health, to his bone broth right now into the chat. It is
Oh,
on.
brilliant.
So we're going to post
Great.
it. We're going to post the link to his bone broth there if you're in the UK.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Great seeing you,
Bye.
Sarb.
Thanks.
Dude, I don't know who else likes an English accent, but it's like, we'll give it a go. I'm like, I love it. I wish I had an English accent, you know?
Top of the morning.
What is this? Hey, oh, we got another one. Top of the morning.
No, I'm in
Oh, you
Florida
just
actually.
faked it.
Hey, Gary.
Hey, man.
Hey, I have been doing the Kettle and Fire. Love it. I got the mushroom organic, some from Publix actually, which was nice.
Great.
Amazing.
But yeah, I had a question for you. About 10 years ago, I did Eat to Live, the book, and just went vegan for 2 months. Felt amazing. And then I went and got a colonoscopy, and it was terrible. I mean, I know a lot of my friends had it, and they were fine next day, no problem. I thought I got punctured. I mean, just all these issues. It's still going on. 10 years later, my gut is still jacked. And I've done like a 3 to 4 day fast, water fast. And that I totally feel amazing
Goodness.
on a water fast.
Yes.
But my question, I guess, to you guys is, I'm sure it's a gut thing, but how, you know, what's my approach to try to get that resolved? It's been going on for literally a long time.
So I'll tell you from my perspective, this is way, way, way more common than you think. I have a very close associate on our team that was diagnosed with something very similar to Crohn's. I'm actually trying to talk them out of getting a colonoscopy, not because I don't believe colonoscopies are good for diagnostics, but one of the things that they do is flush all of your gut bacteria. So you completely devoid the gut of bacteria. So the best way to heal, seal, and repopulate the gut, 3 things you can do. One is follow the gut reset challenge. This is going to be amazing for you, is to continue on the probiotic supplement, but add a second dose later that in the day. You can also take it on an empty stomach. This is called balloon repopulation or blast repopulation. It actually dumps larger volumes of probiotics into the gut that are not as saturated into the contents of the bowel. And so I would increase the amount of probiotics. Also, fasting and then doing the gut reset challenge, a 3-day fast, and then starting the gut reset challenge is a really, really good way to clean the slate before you put pre and probiotics back into the gut. It also lowers the state of inflammation. I'm sorry that happened to you, but I know so many people that had healthy bowels, went in for complete colonoscopy and endoscopy, and they had their upper and lower GI tracts completely voided. And it was just an absolute tailspin for them after that because they were devoid of any gut bacteria. But Justin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I frankly, I have seen massive benefits to fasting, of all kinds. This is one of those areas where, Gary's much smarter on this stuff than I am. I'm not a doctor. I'm more of a food nerd. And so I don't have great,
I'm not a doctor either, for the record.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, you know this stuff from a functional performance, all of this. I spend most of my time going deep on nutrient density, reading about the food system, reading about toxins. And so generally don't like to opine on some of this stuff, especially when you got Gary on the line.
Awesome. Well, I do want you to go on a little tirade about our food system before we let everybody go, because he's got a lot of crazy, credible facts about the food system. Okay, next up. There she is, Karina. I knew we were getting to you.
Thank you so much.
I saw you sort of lurking at the top there. I was like, when are they going to bring her down? You're muted. Bottom left-hand corner.
Okay.
There you go. Hi there. Now you're muted again. You were unmuted, and okay, don't touch anything. You're unmuted.
I am unmuted. Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
After those 3 days, what happens? Can it be continued for so many weeks, months? Should there be a stop and then repeat again? So is it all your life you were doing it, or what happens?
Yeah, so what I did was I actually, for all of you guys, you're the VIPs and the rule breakers, I actually wrote a 2-week continuation diet. So you can actually follow that to the T, right down to the recipe, right down to the grocery list for you. I wanted it to be as mindless and comprehensive as possible. So if you follow that, and then I make suggestions for things you want to incorporate into your daily and weekly life, things like bone broth, things like fermented vegetables, things like the whole food sources that we use on this diet. My hope is that you're going to fall in love with things like ginger cucumber water, that you're going to fall in love with things like adding fermented vegetables that maybe you weren't thinking about. You're going to fall in love with making stocks from bone broths like Kettle and Fire. And those things alone are going to change the trajectory of your gut health. The real issue, like I was saying about mold toxicity, is the same with gut toxicity. Is we got to remove the things that are creating the toxic environment in our gut. So that is not being vegan, vegetarian, keto, paleo, carnivore, pescatarian. It is reducing our intake or eliminating our intake of highly processed foods. Highly processed foods are what wage war on our gut bacteria, especially red dye number 40. That one is emerging as one of the most nasty compounds you can put in the body, and it's in everything. So the idea is to start to develop good habits and start to incorporate more whole foods and start to get used to the taste and how you feel on more whole foods. And that's how your lifelong journey continues. But
about those supplements, we should continue.
Yes, you should continue the gut restore and the probiotics as long as you feel amazing. If you continue on those for several months, you'll just continue to see the benefits. Remember that while we are trying to heal, seal, and repair the gut over the 3 days, this is the kickstart, right? You'll notice that if you stop taking those supplements when you're feeling really, really good, you will maybe start to feel crappy again. It can take months to actually fully repair the gut and to restore the peristaltic activity to the gut, that wave-like motion that's moving contents through our gut. So yes, you can stay on those. Very hard to overdo it with probiotics, prebiotics, and natural anti-inflammatory compounds.
Okay, so 90 days probably, as they always say before you.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Karina. Fire it up, Leon. We got what, 5 more minutes or 6 minutes, and then we're going to go into my kitchen.
Let's let Justin talk for a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. After this question, I want Justin to give us some highlights about the food system too, because he's one of the most knowledgeable people in the entire space.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can, Leon.
Hey, thank you so much for taking my question. Hey, I have been following you for some time. I'm happy to report that most of my blood work is awesome. I'm 26 pounds down, which is about halfway to my goal. But
Okay.
I still struggle with high blood pressure and with elevated cortisol. My homocysteine level is 6.8. I just took that
Great.
recently. And my cortisol is 24.8. So even though I'm doing these gut things and eating changes, obviously there's more to it. I've added resveratrol to my regimen. I take the 10X vitamins. I've been getting plenty of potassium and magnesium. But still, I'm like 160 over 90 most of the time. I'm not on any blood pressure meds. And so these are my last two pieces, the cortisol and the high blood pressure. What do you recommend?
Those are related. I would recommend two things. Number one is something called neuromedulla complex, 2 capsules at night at bedtime. And I would really focus, like I would be super intentional for the next 30 days on your sleep. I would really focus on consistent bedtimes and following that bookending sleep protocol that I have, you know, which is your contrast shower, your a mask, cooling the room down, no blue light in bed, the breath work in bed. Really focus on your sleep scores. Cortisol is regulated during deep sleep. We do not get enough deep and REM sleep. We secrete excess cortisol so that we run on adrenaline. And sometimes people that are, you know, just very, very strong minded will have elevated levels of cortisol, which causes peripheral vasoconstriction, which drives up blood pressure. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going on, but in that case, I would add that supplement, and I would I would be militant about sleep.
So in the meantime, I don't really want to be on a prescription blood pressure med, but am I doing any damage as I'm still trying to lose more weight and bring that down? But am I at risk by being 160, 170 over 90, 95 at times?
Well, I mean, I'd rather that be answered by a qualified physician. I would monitor the blood pressure and see if it begins to come down as you actually start to engage in some of those practices. You know, cold water and hot water, or cold and hot contrast therapy is also really good to relax the peripheral vascular system. Remember, when you're in a state of fight or flight, you actually are creating vascular constriction. So stress is a big deal. That's why all your cardiologists will tell you, oh, you just need to reduce stress, because stress can raise our blood pressure indirectly by causing us to stay in a fight or flight state and constrict our peripheral vascular system. The last thing that I would do, if you haven't taken the gene test, I would take the gene test, and if it doesn't resolve in the next few weeks, I would do a blood test for something called SAH, S-A-H, S-adenosyl homocysteine. This is the second most common lurking villain to homocysteine, and we don't check it on a blood test. People that have low homocysteine and have hyperhomocysteinemic symptoms very often have elevated SAH, and there's a different supplement protocol for that if you have it. So I would do that in a few weeks.
I did do the gene test, and I was yellow on the mother effer and the P, and I was green on the other 3.
Okay, so you're already on the optimized then. If the team put you on that for your for that genetic deficiency, let's give that some time to work itself out.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to give Justin the floor for a few minutes, guys. I want him to talk about all things food system and policy before I go into the kitchen and show you the meals. He was really instrumental in bringing me onto a team of folks that are seeking to influence public policy and make real changes. People like Callie Means, Casey Means. And he's really doing some very, very interesting things, for, folks to be able to use their health savings accounts to actually pay for wellness products and maybe even your supplements. So I really want to give you the floor, Justin, because I just think you're doing incredible work, and I'd love to help you get the word out.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, for those who maybe haven't listened, I did a podcast with Gary where I went pretty deep into this stuff a couple of months ago. But at a very high level, I mean, one of the things I believe is that we are in the midst of a literally record chronic disease crisis. Like, Americans, people in developed countries have never been sicker, never had more chronic conditions than they have today. Our children have never been sicker, never had more chronic conditions today. And I firmly believe this is a result of the policies that we kind of have enacted as a country pertaining to our food system. Like, one of the things that I think is among the craziest policies that exist today is we as a country, we subsidize a bunch of crops, mainly corn, soy, and wheat. There's been about $200 billion that have gone towards making these products artificially cheap over the last, 40 to 50 years. And because corn, soy, and wheat are so cheap, we basically see corn, soy, and wheat in everything, and in its most processed form. Soybean oil has gone from being less than 1% of American calories to almost 20% of the average American's daily caloric intake comes from soybean oil. It's insane. High fructose corn syrup, absolutely everywhere. And it has a much, much higher negative impact on your body than eating fruit, sugar, honey, anything like that. And then wheat, in its, again, most highly processed form, just makes its way into everything. I think that these things, high fructose corn syrup, soybean oil, and highly processed and rich, flours and grains, they basically are the building blocks on which ultra processed foods are built. And unfortunately today, if you look at the average kid, the average person that is on Medicare, Medicaid, these people are eating anywhere between like 50 and 80%, literally 80% of their entire diet is made up of ultra processed foods. And so for my money, the craziest thing that is happening in the US today is through crop subsidies, we subsidize the creation of very, very cheap ultra processed foods. Those ultra processed foods then make people sick. As people get record levels of chronic disease, we, again, as a country, subsidize that chronic disease. Only once people are sick, don't spend a single dollar, less than 2% of all healthcare spend goes towards prevention or anything resembling wellness. And basically, that is this crazy cycle we're stuck in. We subsidize cheap, crappy food, people get sick from that food, and then we pay through the nose for via our healthcare system to treat, not cure, just manage the many chronic conditions that result that result from just the poor diet, the low nutritive value, and the very, very processed toxic food system that most of us live in today. And so I feel very strongly that, hopefully we are on the cusp of like the sort of like make America healthy again thing. This should be like the least partisan issue in the world. Like, I just am so excited to see this rising to the top of the national conversation, because I do think that this is among the biggest problems, issues in the world today. And if we don't fix our food system, if we don't make the average American healthier again, we are truly on a collision course to go bankrupt and to just like absolutely decimate our human capital. And so this is the thing that I spend a lot of my time working on, thinking about, is just like, how do we at core fix the food system? Just because we just need people to get healthy again. That's the only way to fix our massive, massive healthcare problem.
Can you talk just for a minute about health savings accounts and how some people might qualify to actually use their HSAs, which a lot of folks on this simulcast have, to transfer them to wellness?
Yeah, so I started a company called TrueMed, and what TrueMed does is basically the IRS regulates something called a health savings account or a flexible spending account. They're basically tax-free buckets or accounts that you can set up where if you get a doctor's note, the IRS has said that it is fully eligible for you basically to get a doctor's note and spend your tax-free money on supplements, on exercise, on red light therapy, on this class of interventions that can treat or prevent certain chronic conditions. And so what we're doing as a company, what TrueMed is doing, is we're working with a bunch of partners, service providers, product sellers, and the like, and making it so that you can spend tax-free money, which is effectively, you know, saving between 20 and 40% on buying these products that, because they work, because they're effective, you know, they also come at a premium cost. And so we're trying to make it, you know, fix the incentives and make it more accessible for the average person to invest in their health and wellness and then invest in driving and preventing chronic disease.
Yeah. Guys, that's amazing, man. Justin, thank you so much for taking the time. If you're close, you're welcome to come over, have lunch, run some red light, jump into the cold plunge, take a hydrogen bath if you want. But otherwise, good luck, you know, good luck this weekend at the event. But guys, I hope you guys will follow Justin. Where can my audience find you?
Yeah, so I have a Substack. You can search Justin Maher's Substack. I write a monthly newsletter on the food system and health. We're also, you can check out kettleandfire.com or TrueMed.com, which is my company that's trying to unlock HSA, FSA spending for root cause interventions.
Yeah, you're doing great things in the world, brother. It's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for giving up your time today.
Of course. Thanks, man. Great to meet you.
Yeah,
all.
you're welcome. Hey, guys. And I also did a podcast with Justin, which is an amazing podcast, free. Check it out. So we're going to go offline for about 60 seconds while I just transfer everybody over to my kitchen. What's in Gary's kitchen is about to be Gary. And so we're going to just go dark for 60 seconds and then light it up in the kitchen so we can walk through the rest of our meals for the day. See you guys in there. All right, guys, we're in Gary's kitchen. So what we should have made today was the salmon and avocado salad with the fermented vegetables. You see the fermented vegetables is just a theme running through everything. I'm really trying to use the pickled onions and the fermented veggies as a way to put the prebiotics and probiotics back into our gut. I also have the cucumbers on here, half an avocado, and then I've got the salmon. Look at this, guys. This is wild caught fatty salmon. You can even put olive oil on top of this. So if you want to make it a little more satiating, you can actually pour extra virgin olive oil on this. Make sure your extra virgin olive oil is actually extra virgin olive oil. You can actually turn the label around. Sometimes you will see the word palm kernel oil on there or canola oil. And they're allowed to take extra virgin olive oil and dilute it with other seed oils. So make sure that you're actually getting a pure extra virgin olive oil. And the back of the label says extra virgin olive oil, period. That's what you want to really look for. There's a lot of tricks to actually showing on the big label that you're looking at on the shelf. It will say extra virgin olive oil, then you spin it around and it will say palm kernel oil or canola oil. So that as long as it's not more than 65% palm kernel oil or 65% canola oil, they're actually allowed to advertise it that way. Super, super sneaky. And then I've got the miso soup here with the tofu and the mushrooms in it. And some what I call scallions. Look at this, guys. If that doesn't make you happy, nothing will. Look at those mushrooms. These are the gnocchis, enoki mushrooms. They're enoki mushrooms. I mean, they're beautiful and they will serve you. So this is going to be in service to my temple. And then all I'd ask that you do is just get in the habit before you eat of just take 3, 4, 5 seconds and set your intention. Like, what is my intention? Eating this meal. Why am I eating this meal? I'm eating this meal to serve my body. These nutrients are going to go all throughout my body. They're going to cleanse me. They're going to heal me. They're going to make me feel good. They're going to nourish me. They're going to repair my gut. And so it really matters. And the science is growing about how we set our intention for certain activities and the outcome that that activity has on our bodies. And it's so easy to just start this little mindful practice, because when you sit down in front of a meal that you know is not going to serve you and you go to set that intention, you'll go, what's my intention of eating this chocolate croissant and these 3 pastries in this processed, this processed jam? Well, my intention is just to have something taste good. It's not going to serve you. It's going to steal from you. It's going to be pro-inflammatory. And then, of course, I showed you yesterday how we could take that ORP meter. I don't know where it is, but it's around here somewhere. That ORP meter, and you can actually measure the impact of the hydrogen water. You add hydrogen water to this meal, and you're just putting kindling on the fire, right? You're giving your body the excess ions that it needs to reduce inflammation. You're giving your body the excess ions that it needs and loses in digestion and assimilation of nutrients. And you're giving the body the excess ions that you need to repair that lining of the gut and feed the class of bacteria in our gut called hydrophiles. And then there are the supplements we're going to take today. Remember, 20 to 30 minutes before lunch, you're going to take the Body Health Gut Defense. And then 1 to 2 of the Body Health Digestive Enzymes within 30 minutes of your meal. Okay, so that's going to help emulsify it and deliver those contents into the gut in a way that you can assimilate them. I want to thank you guys for joining me the past 3 days. The Rule Breaker community is my favorite community. You're my VIPs. You're the ones I want to pour myself into. I'm going to open up these 2-hour sessions every month. I'm militant about trying to be present for those sessions so you can ask me questions. You've all felt what's possible in just 3 days. Imagine what 2 weeks is going to do for you. That's why I wrote you the continuation of this diet. It's going to give you a lifetime of optimal health. We want to change our patterns so that we can change our life. So you're all going to be receiving the 2-week extended guide in your emails. I'll be announcing the giveaway winners in the Rule Breakers community tomorrow. I actually was reading some of those while Justin was talking today. I'm so deeply appreciative when I see that this is really impacting your